In today's video, I'm going to be going over the 5 worst things about living right here in Walnut Creek. That way you know what you're getting yourself into before you make a move out this way. And if you're looking for more information past this video about Walnut Creek or any of the surrounding videos, then you've came to the right place. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can see all of our videos around the entire East Bay area, specifically Contra Costa and Alameda counties. So here's the topics you can expect us to go over today in the 5 worst things about Walnut Creek: public transportation, commute times, population growth, housing cost, and parking, or I should say lack of parking, specifically in the downtown area. Starting off with what I would say the worst of this list is going to be public transportation. If you've never been to Walnut Creek or scoped out this area and you kind of don't know the distance between maybe your work or the distance you would be living here in the Walnut Creek or surrounding areas, then you have pretty much 2 means of transportation, and those transportation means are going to be car, of course, and secondly is going to be Bart. For the buyers and sellers that I work with, most of them are either selling or maybe leaving renting behind in the San Francisco, Peninsula, South Bay areas, and they're coming over to the East Bay so they can get a little bit more home, a little bit more affordability, but they're still having to commute to those areas of South Bay, Peninsula, San Francisco. But the lucky thing about it is most of those people and soon-to-be residents are really only working around 2 to 3 days per week. So that commute is a little bit more doable rather than a full-blown 5 days a week at a 1 to 1.5 hour commute each way. So unless you're a Tesla owner and you get to kind of have the hands-free driving, or at least for the most part hands-free driving, then you're going to want to take Bart, because if you're anything like me, you get some work done on the Bart train kind of while you're going in. Maybe you want to be like some other people who watch some podcasts, some TV, some movies, some audiobooks, maybe even take a nap. You know, you never know. But if you do choose to take Bart, then you have a few different options of where Bart can ultimately take you, just depending on where you work. So the obvious areas that Bart's going to take you is going to be cities like Oakland and San Francisco. But Bart can actually do a lot of different things when it comes to transfers. It can take you to Berkeley. It can take you all the way up to the edge of the peninsula in Millbrae. It can even take you as far down south as the Berryessa neighborhood of San Jose. And if you're lucky enough to be able to work in the Tri-Valley areas, most people are probably just going to commute by car if you're living in the East Bay, or I should say central Contra Costa County area, but it can take you into the Dublin and Pleasanton areas, which is known as the Tri-Valley region. Now, don't get me wrong, Bart is a great option, and a lot of people would really want Bart who maybe don't have as nice of public transportation, but a huge downside to me personally is the lack of seating on Bart. Like I mentioned earlier, people who take Bart usually like to tune out a little bit. It's the first part of their morning where they just kind of want to relax and be able to just zone out, listen to podcasts, watch TV shows, read books, get some work done. But if you have to stand that whole time on Bart, it's not as pleasant as really just getting in your car and maybe listening to some music or an audiobook or a podcast while you drive yourself. In the mornings, and of course when you're coming home, Bart gets pretty crammed. There is lines at each doorstop of Bart in the mornings for people that really want to get right in there and have a seat. So if you're living in maybe the Martinez or Concord area or even Pleasant Hill, you have a lot better shot at getting a seat at those Bart stops. Once it gets to the Walnut Creek, the Lafayette, or even going the other way down to the South Bay, it's going to get harder and harder to get that seat. And not to mention, Bart has actually redesigned their Bart cars to fit more people, which means less seating, but more people being able to stand inside of that Bart car itself. Now, if you do work in the Peninsula, which is very common for some of the tech workers out here in the Bay Area, there is Caltrains, which offers a transfer from Bart to Caltrain. The only thing about that is kind of the same thing. It's going to be a very long trip within itself, and having to take a transfer from Bart to Caltrain and kind of having some uncertainties where maybe Bart can be off a little bit on time, and same thing with Caltrains. It is an option if you just really don't want to drive, but most people, in my experience, people I work with, are just going to opt in for driving. If you're not familiar with Caltrains is basically the Peninsula's version of Bart in a sense. So I have a very helpful tip for you when it comes to Bart. If you hit the link in my description of this video, then you can click on what's called the Bart Trip Planner. This allows you to do what I call a mock commute and really allows you to see what the distance and time spent would be if, let's say, you're leaving from Walnut Creek all the way up to Oakland, maybe San Francisco, or part of the peninsula. This is really important and something I always stress for people who just aren't as familiar with the East Bay, and maybe they're coming here from San Francisco and they're just not really thinking about that commute as much as they should. So this segues right into our next topic, which is commute times, which we've touched on a little bit, but I'm going to go a little bit further into that. Now, let's say you're refusing to take Bart, you want to have your alone time, you like your alone time in your car, and you're saying, you know what, I'm going to make the drive no matter what the traffic looks like. Now, obviously, this is where Apple and Google Maps can be very helpful. you have the feature to be able to put the exact time and day that you would be leaving your house, and maybe you know exactly when you should leave your house to get to your work destination at the right time. So to put it into context, with no traffic, you can easily get from Walnut Creek to San Francisco within 30 to 40 minutes. But when you factor in traffics and accidents, it's a whole different scenario. From my experience and past clients' take on commuting, it's really not so much the commute to work that's grueling as it is the commute back home from work that's a lot more grueling. Peak traffic times going into some of the major metropolitan cities are going to be anywhere from 7 to 9 a.m. and then coming back is going to be anywhere from 4 to 6 p.m. So since tech, of course, has gotten so popular here in the Bay Area, a lot of tech workers are able to have a little bit more flexibility within their schedule, meaning you can kind of come in a little bit earlier or later than you want, or leave a little bit earlier or later than you want. And since that's happened, we've noticed a little bit more congestion starting at the 3 p.m., sometimes even late 2 p.m. time because of the flexibility that's coming with people's work schedules. Since it varies so much about the different cities that you may be commuting to, or whoever's watching this video may be commuting to, I don't find it too helpful to give you the exact times of each different city, but I should let you know that if you do have the flexibility to go in a little bit after 9 a.m. or maybe even come back home a little bit after 5 or 6 p.m., then you're going to be in a lot better situation than most, because you're going to skip a lot of that traffic if you're coming home after 6 p.m. and you're leaving after 9 a.m. Lastly, before we get off of this topic, I will say I find it very helpful for anybody that's looking to come out towards the East Bay and they know that they're going to have to commute to San Francisco or the South Bay after they move here. I think it's very, very useful not to just rely on the Apple or the Google Maps and kind of those time frames, rather than do a real mock commute yourself. Once you do it that 1 or 2 times there and back, you can really, really tell if you can be in it and get down with it for the long run. All right, so on to topic number 3, let's talk population growth here in Walnut Creek. Walnut Creek's population growth has technically decreased 1% each year since 2020. 70,000 in 2020 and 68,000 now in 2024. Obviously, that's a little bit more than 1% each year, but on average, that's been the decrease. You probably expected me to say that it's been increasing X amount of percent year over year, but this is actually a lot less of a decrease than we've seen in many other cities throughout the Bay Area. So we all know that it's very common for Californians, after all the years they've built up their equity and when they bought their homes, are cashing out and going to other states. But it's actually more common for Californians to cash out and move to other more affordable cities of the San Francisco Bay Area, but I should say really more affordable cities of California. Some of those cities, of course, are Sacramento, Roseville, and El Dorado Hills, where a lot of people are saying, hey, I may not get that Bay Area, closeness, but I can still take a 2-hour, 1.5-hour drive up to the Bay Area whenever I want and be able to cash out. So don't be fooled when people are saying Californians are leaving for other states. It's actually, there's a lot of data that says that they're all staying within California, just going to more affordable cities of California. So with the amount of low inventory that we're currently seeing here in not only Walnut Creek, but in the Bay Area, it's making mainly locals, but also those who are moving here feel like we're kind of bursting at the seams. So of course, businesses want as many people coming to Walnut Creek, living in Walnut Creek as much as possible so that they can benefit from the amount of influx that's coming. But it's kind of a double-edged sword, because those of us who have lived here in the Bay Area our whole lives, who it's very hard to afford, housing prices and what's happening on top of all the congestion and traffic that we have to deal with. It's just not an easy topic to get used to. And as I mentioned in topics 1 and 2, places like Concord, Pleasant Hill, Walnut Creek, Central Contra Costa County is becoming a hotspot for tech workers who do have that flexibility of 1, 2, 3 day office schedules. So it's kind of inevitable that people are moving out this way because they just get that more affordability and they can sacrifice that commute that they may have to do 1, 2, 3 days a week. Next up on our 4th topic is going to be housing costs here in Walnut Creek. As I just mentioned, this one is a double-edged sword for both locals and people that are looking to move to the Walnut Creek or surrounding cities. So although every homeowner loves that their home is appreciating, the locals who have been saving for a long time or getting priced out of the markets they want to be in find it very, very frustrating. Walnut Creek currently has a median sales price for single-family homes of $1.4 million. Another big issue with Walnut Creek in general is the amount of homes that they're building is, of course, not enough to keep up with the low inventory levels that we have here. But to add to that, the new homes that they are building are just extremely unaffordable. I will shed some positivity though. There is one condo development that's happening right here near downtown Walnut Creek. And that's the only one I've seen, but I do hope to feature that in some of my future videos where you guys can get a feel of what some quote unquote affordability may look like in Walnut Creek, which is going to be condo style living, usually anywhere from 1 to 3 bedroom condos. If you want some more information on that condo development that's happening right now, it's already broken ground and you can contact me from the description below. It has all my details. Another good thing is we are seeing just a slow uptick in inventory, even though it's not anywhere near what we need it to be. As of now in the market, buyers are getting very used to high 6s and low 7% interest rates, and the inventory that we have is just not enough to keep up with the demand or level off housing prices whatsoever. All right, so last up on my list, which is very much a first world problem, is going to be the parking in downtown Walnut Creek specifically. If you haven't been to downtown Walnut Creek, it is one of the go-to spots pretty much in all of Contra Costa County for people to do some shopping, get some food, have some fun, so on and so forth. But Friday through Sunday, parking is not easy at all. You're lucky, very, very lucky, just by chance if you get to park on the street during Friday through Sunday. And even some of the parking garages is a little bit rough when trying to go through level through level through level to find that parking spot. Residents and ex-residents of Walnut Creek are very vocal about this. The thing that's tough is there's really not any infills to be able to put more parking in downtown Walnut Creek. It's pretty packed enough as it is. Now, to shed positivity, because I always like to throw some positivity in there where I can, Monday through Thursday, really not a problem parking at all. I was just there earlier today, and I found a parking spot right there on the street, right there in downtown, and it's really just the weekends that gets really rough. So as I mentioned, this is a small problem when there's a lot of bigger problems to be talked about, but I like to be transparent, and it really would be nice to be able to have more parking in downtown Walnut Creek, but it's just not something I see happening anytime soon. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope it was informative for you and gives you just a little bit of taste of what it looks like or may look like to live here in Walnut Creek, or even just a little bit outside of Walnut Creek. If you want to see more videos on Walnut Creek, maybe see what the downtown is like, maybe see what some good neighborhoods are like, you have all the videos, specifically a playlist just for Walnut Creek that you guys can dive into. And any more additional information or questions you have, you can leave it in the comments below or reach out to me directly with my contact information in the description below. See you guys on the next video.